Welcome to the Art of Listening to Your Body podcast. My name is Dr. Jinong and I'm your host. I'm a cathartic release therapist, professionally trained as an osteopath, psychosomatic therapist, Western acupuncturist, and herbalist. I'm fascinated by the mind-body connection and how your physical body is a manifestation of your emotional state. I help people get unstuck from their chronic pain, whether it be physical or emotional, and live the life they truly desire, grounded in values and driven by purpose. My aim is to create awareness to the underlying emotions behind pain, injury, and disease in the body, as well as behavioural dysfunctions and mental imbalances that present. I do this using a unique blend of Eastern and Western philosophies and a good dose of intuition. Join me to learn more about the story of your body, what different issues may indicate, how to release emotions so that you can prevent problems, as well as inspiring pain story interviews. If you're listening to this live on July the 18th at 11 a.m. New Zealand time, I will be running a free live release masterclass for 2 hours. This is where I cover in depth the actual process that I take my clients through when I am facilitating a release on the physical, physiological, and the emotional level. And I'll also share with you the Eastern philosophies that I tie into my work. So I will cover the chakras, the basics of chakras, and how you can use this to understand what emotions might be buried in your body and causing the physical and mental issues that you have going on. And also how I use Ayurvedic doshas when it comes to this work so that you can understand how you're going to respond, and also how you can use these to connect back to your true nature to really understand yourself on a deeper level and not be so dictated to by society and marketing and advertising out there. So this will go for 2 hours. I will also use this opportunity to share a little bit about my 6-week release course, which is where you can take all of this work a level deeper. This will be the second time I'm running it. The first time was incredible. The energy was palpable. The shifts that people were getting was absolutely amazing during the 6 weeks, but also beyond the 6 weeks. This work continues to evolve. It continues to drop in. You'll hear something different every time if you've joined me on previous masterclasses or even on the course. I still love hearing from people the shifts and the changes that they are getting in their life. I share so much on my masterclasses. These are live. You'll hear new stories, and I hope you can join me. It is on July the 18th at 11 a.m. New Zealand time. For those of you in the States, Canada, and UK, this is going to be Saturday for you. So make sure you join and register. It is at theartoflisteningtoyourbody.com/release. I will pop it in the podcast notes. When you register, you'll get all the reminders, your special Zoom link, and you'll also get all of the time conversions as well. If you do show up live as well, we will be sharing something special with you in the chat that you can use towards the 6-week course. So make sure you register, and we will also be sending out a replay. I'm so happy to be joined by Elle Brown today. Some of you may have seen Elle pop up on my social media. She is one of the first people that came on board my emotional body practitioner training. She was one of my biggest skeptics and probably one of my biggest converts. I love just keeping in touch with people that I have worked with and crossed paths with to hear where they are. We've kept in regular contact, but just over a year later, it is just amazing to hear where she is. She has just progressed in leaps and bounds. She's got a pretty interesting pain story, which actually our experience together on the emotional body training really changed my perspective on how deep this work can go and how much of an effect it can have on the physiological body and our biochemistry. So we got to go on that journey together, and she is going to take you through this crazy timeline and all of the amazing shifts that have happened for her in the last just over a year. So Elle is a women's wellness nutritionist who specializes in female fatigue, hormone health, emotional health, and eating behavior issues like binge eating. She also works on balancing your body's system. She has 10 years experience working in the health space and is passionate about education and empowerment. She's known for unearthing the root cause and finding the why, and then implementing attainable and practical strategies. She works closely with her clients to help them feel supported, heard, and encouraged on their journey to health and wellness. Elle endeavours to impart that food is not simply for fuel, and often shares the importance of joy within food choices for health, happiness, and energy. Elle has completed her Bachelor of Health Science in Nutrition and Dietetic Medicine and is currently completing a Master's at Deakin University in Human Nutrition and Research. We have a good little Google about all the study that Elle has been doing, so she'll share that with you a little bit later. She is forever committed to continual learning. That's why she came on the emotional body training, and she's also done further study in the binge eating space. She's also an avid chai lover, chocolate and peanut butter enthusiast, and she feels most at home by the ocean. I am so excited to speak with you, Elle Brown. We connected at the start of my journey of the art of listening to your body. You were one of my first cohorts of emotional body training, and I had to reach out to you to get you on this podcast. I knew that we were always going to talk with one another on the podcast, but my gosh, you have just had some big changes happen recently. You have an incredible story of what shifted for you health-wise. When you went through the training, you had massive personal and professional shifts. So I would just love us to dive into that. But first of all, tell people who you are and what you do.
Oh, Jen, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm a women's wellness nutritionist. I'm in Australia on Sydney's northern beaches, and currently I primarily work with women on all types of women's health issues. So whether that's increasing your energy, looking at focusing on your hormones. I now do a lot of work in the emotional space with eating behaviors, things like binge eating, restrictive behaviors, and that's thanks to you and this amazing work, Jen. And yeah, I'm at a really beautiful point in my journey with my work, and I feel like we've been talking about sitting down and doing this for ages, but the timing is really pertinent for me. I'm about to open my own women's wellness space where I can't wait to dive into this work even more. So yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in.
Yes, and you just told me that this is perfect timing. You booked this in a week ago, but you finally handed in your resignation with your safe job.
I did. It's so funny. Like you and I kept calling it my safe job. And I truly think for so long I've been wanting to do what I'm about to do and what I'm about to embark on. But it was just feeling honestly like I wasn't good enough to do it. And I wasn't confident in my own abilities. And I just got to the point where I think I got sick of my own stuff and took the plunge. And yes, yesterday I handed in my resignation. So it's official now.
Gosh, can you imagine? So it was just over a year ago. Actually, we were still working with one another a year ago this time.
Yeah.
But just reflecting back on the last year, can you believe what's happened?
No. And I know we're going to go into it, but my whole life has radically shifted in every single way. So I know we'll go into it further today, but my health radically shifted, improved, changed. My work has obviously taken a huge direction that I've been wanting it to take for so long. My relationships and core relationship radically shifted. So yeah, it's hard to believe. I had no idea that a year ago, if you'd said to me, a year from now of starting this work, you would be here, I wouldn't have believed you for a second. Not at
Yeah.
all.
Oh, I just trusted that it was going to happen. I'm so happy that it has happened in a year for you. Anyway, let's get into where you were then. So tell us a little bit about your state of physical health from a very young age and the things that were happening just a couple of years prior to us meeting.
Yeah, so I've got quite an extensive health history with myself, and primarily it's related to the liver. So the liver's kind of become my key area of focus. But I guess when I came to you a year ago, I would say that I was at like a severe state of distress with my health because growing up, I had a lot of stuff that happened in that same kind of liver area where I actually did quite a strange injury to myself when I was quite young, which impacted my liver, which meant that it was quite sluggish. So it didn't operate as well as everyone else's does. And I
Can you
had,
just tell us what actually happened?
oh, yeah, okay, you like getting the nitty gritty, don't
Yeah, I love the
you?
details.
So yeah, I was walking home from school with my younger sister, and I was being stupid, walking backwards. We were being really silly, and we thought it would be really fun to go through like an empty building site, as you do when you're kids. And there was a huge pile of bricks off to the side, and I was being stupid, walking backwards, talking to her, and I started tripping on the bricks that were behind me. But because I was in a weird position, I fell really funny, so I actually twisted as I fell, and because I was quite a skinny child, they think what happened is I really did a hard fall on that right hand side and I've impacted my liver on the inside, which you don't think that you've done an injury to an organ when you have a fall. So, years and years of getting like chronic migraines, I would catch everything. I reacted to like all medications. I had a really low immune system. So I had tonsillitis a range of times and a bunch of other things. And that was sort of my story as like a teen. And I just fell into that chronic state of getting all these different health issues. It was like a cascade until I figured out what had actually happened. They traced it back. I had a lot of imaging done on that organ, and it led them to see that, yeah, I did have some scar tissue in there, and there was quite a bit that was impacting the function. Um, I'm really well at the moment, so it's an awesome thing to be able to reflect on. But a year ago, when I came to see you, I'd been well for quite a number of years. And then just before I came to see you, probably about a year prior to coming to see you, which would have been 2 years ago now, things just started going awry again. And, I was getting these weird symptoms back that I hadn't had for so long. But not only that, like I got a panel of bloods done. I remember telling you this when I came to you. And I had an array of deficiencies. My iron was pretty much on the floor. They couldn't figure it out because I'm a nutritionist, right? So I was eating everything I'm meant to be eating at the correct times and, not having water with food. And I had this really weird marker. So my inflammatory markers were through the roof. And there was just all these weird things on my bloods that really were quite unanswered. And so I'd sort of done everything physically that I felt that I could do at that time. And I stumbled upon your emotional body training course, and I was really interested for my clients. Had no idea that it was going to have such a profound impact on me personally. I just thought, oh, this will enrich my clients. Little did I know I was going to go through this massive transition process, which I guess is what this work magically does. But yeah, when I came to you, that was where I was at. So markers on bloods everywhere, super anemic, liver markers through the roof, inflammatory markers through the roof. And, I was exercising 5, 6 days a week. I'm a nutritionist. I eat beautifully. I sit in the sun whenever I can. Like, I'm someone that does everything by the textbook that you would say you should do. But gosh, I had not looked at the emotions. I had not.
Yeah. So, from memory, you were saying, just so people know that,
Yeah.
yes, something actually happened to your liver. I think it was when you were in your early teens, you had that
Yeah. It
injury.
was. Yeah.
And you actually had to go to hospital to get your liver manipulated back into a certain position. And whenever someone says that to me, I'm like, so are you really sure that that's what they had to do? And you're like, yep, I had to see the physio, and they actually do these manipulations that were really painful to shift my liver back over into where it should be.
Yeah. So
And
sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah, they actually said that at the time they were looking at doing surgery because they were like, this is a lot higher than it should be. It's kind of up near where your diaphragm is and it's affecting the function. And but they were worried that there might be some risks with doing a surgery. So yeah, I actually had to go and do like a rehab type thing where it was it was moved back into place, which was very painful. But following that, I got told that, the function should be okay if I took care of myself and did all of the right things. And so it was quite disheartening when it cropped back up for me. Yeah.
Mm. And so you had had several years of your liver markers just constantly being elevated, and
Yes.
then the deficiencies, which was, it was vitamin D, B12 and iron.
Yeah, it was. Wow, great memory you have. Yeah,
Mm.
the iron was on the floor though. The iron was pretty much non-existent, which considering I was eating iron-rich foods and, looking after everything from a physical perspective, it was quite confusing.
'Cause what sort of state were you in? I think it was the year prior, you said that you could
Yeah.
like barely even walk outside.
Oh, Jen, like the thought of, and I was reflecting on this the other day, like if I went to work and obviously my job is I'm seated, I'm working with people, but I'm sitting down. The thought of actually having to drive there and walk from my car into a building, which would have only been a couple of meters, was actually a mental battle. I would have to sit in the car and say to myself, you're going to make it inside. I really had to G myself up. And after work, I'd have to come home and just sleep. And it got to the point where I had to stop driving for a few months because actually just being behind a wheel, concentrating, that's how low my energy was. And that's how low it got. And I couldn't walk to the end of my street. So here I am, 28, 29 years old, healthy, just completely debilitated by, I didn't know what it was at the time, and thinking, why is my iron so low? Why is this happening?
And how old are you now?
I'm 30, in the
Woohoo.
30 club. Yeah.
Life does not go downhill once you turn 30, don't worry.
Oh, I'm excited. I feel like this is just the beginning. Yeah, I'm
Yeah, it's
excited.
crazy that people tell you that though.
They- You know what? That's their stuff though, isn't it?
It is. Okay, so what kind of therapy were you doing as well? So you were seeing the doctor, you were getting blood tests every few months, and what sort of other therapists were you seeing and what were they telling you?
Yeah, look, I try everything. I'm someone that's so curious by different treatments, but I definitely have, I mean, you're in NZ and I'm in Oz, otherwise I'd definitely come and see you, but I have a really amazing osteophysio here that I see quite a lot. So she still works on my liver from that kind of aspect of just manipulating. I get a bit tight in there physically, so I see her. I have a really good integrative GP that I see who's across all my testing and bloods. I have an incredible naturopath. So that's really my core team of people. And then obviously I draw on my own knowledge with nutrition. But I even went back to my naturopath and just said, what am I missing here? Because sometimes you're too close to your own case. And so she did a full, she looked at my bloods and then she also did live blood analysis because, my GP was kind of saying to me, like, your bloods look terrible and I don't understand that, but you're like really ill. And she couldn't really give me a lot of answers as to why, like I had the symptoms that I had, like extreme fatigue, dizziness, like would feel faint all the time. I was really breathless. Like there was a lot of symptoms that were going on that were really chronic. And when my naturopath got my blood up on the live blood analysis, like she's a friend of mine too, and she just looked at me and said, I would expect blood like this from a sick person or from an elderly person. This is horrible. So I don't know if you've ever done live blood analysis or anyone that listens to this has, but you can see your blood cells that come up on like a screen basically, and you watch them and they're meant to move around. They're meant to be like a beautiful round shape. Mine were clunky, like they were stuck in a clump together. They were all misshapen. They looked terrible. The minute I saw it come up, I just thought, oh my God. Um, but the best part of that process is as I went through the process, I know we're going to dive into it, but as I did the work with you and went through the emotional body training and like I was committed, as you know, I did my homework and I really put it into practice. I saw that change. Like I physically saw that blood analysis and my blood cells change in front of me over the coming, weeks and months. And oh my God, like the difference, you can just see how much my body was responding.
Yeah, and I want to have a chat a little bit later about, because you had an appointment with your GP, and I'm so glad that you let me share your story amongst my groups, and because it was a huge shift for me with my work to see what is possible as well, not just on the physical level, but inside your biochemistry, your physiology, and how that operates. Um, But yeah, you had a moment where you were going to see the doctor and you had those few days where you had to wait and you thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. And so we were with you with that thought. And then we got to celebrate with you. But let's save that for a little bit later. And then also just all the stuff your therapist were saying to you as well, because they were surprised and they could feel the change, which was really cool. Okay, so do you want to, because you say that you were my biggest skeptic.
Oh, Gina, I was such a skeptic. I'm going to be so honest with you. And I love you.
I
Like,
think you were my nicest
yeah,
skeptic.
yeah. Oh, true. Yeah, but I'm working on that.
Yeah, not being so nice.
Not being so nice is something I'm definitely working on, because I think, yeah, and I've gone and done like further work and really leaned into what I learned through you. But I think, the nice girl, it's such a mask for me.
Mm,
So yeah, that's something I'm definitely working on. But as far as being your biggest skeptic, I think it was also a bit of desperation of, I'm so sick. I really want to do something that would help. And I was only looking at the emotional body work at that time for my clients because I was just seeing reoccurring themes with what they were coming in with and how we were reaching so many stuck points on their health journey, which mirrored mine because I was trying everything physically and feeling so stuck. And I thought, is this going to be like a load of, BS, or is this actually going to help people, going to help my clients, going to help me? And that first session with you, like I was sweating, I felt ill, like I felt exposed. I mean, like you went to places that I hadn't even seen myself. And I think that's super confronting. And I left it and I was a bit pissed off, I think, like on reflection, because I was like, okay, shit, like she actually can see stuff that even I don't want to look at. All right, perhaps there's something here. And perhaps I should just give this a go and just trust that I'm on this journey for a reason. And like, Elle, you've paid, you've committed, you're giving the hours, like let's give it a red hot go. And so I'm so glad that I did. But yeah, I was I was definitely skeptical.
yes. And actually, Brock was in your group as well, one of the first, and he's done a podcast with me. And to hear his change over the
Oh,
course of a year and him share his story is amazing. And he is the reason we dive deep.
oh, that session, like, because we didn't really know how it was going to go. I guess we were like the first people doing it, and he went so deep. And I just remember we were all so teary, like us listening to his story. And he was the catalyst for me going deep. Absolutely. I just thought, and for people that don't know the setup, we were all sitting like on Zoom with a group of strangers we'd never met before. And here we are just all sharing our deepest, darkest, most personal demons and secrets. And when I was telling my girlfriends what I was doing, they're like, are you insane? Like, this is so confronting. But there was something really liberating about it too. And like, I still feel so connected to those people because it was such an experience.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to love hearing this story. And I'm excited to see their changes that happen
I
over
know.
the many years to come too. So, can you share then from your side what came out? What did I highlight in you? What did you have to dive deeper into?
God, where do we start? Like,
Mm,
what didn't you highlight in me, to be so honest? It's so funny because in certain ways I feel so confident in my work because it's a safe space for me and I love being with my clients. But it's kind of also a way to focus on, I think, being in that healer role, which sometimes like you sort of ignore your own stuff and you're able to help other people navigate their own stuff. And the first thing you, I think, said to me that really struck a chord is, and why are you so nice? And that was so confronting for me because I was like, I am nice. I'm a nice person. What are you talking about? And you asked me a lot about my relationship with anger and, do I allow myself to go there? Which wasn't the first time I'd been asked that, but it was the way you asked it. It was the way you shaped it. You didn't sugarcoat anything. You just went straight there. And you obviously brought up, my tendency to people please and be the nice girl and never ripple the waters. And I had a lot of issues at that time, and it's still a work in progress, obviously, but with things like boundaries and self-worth and self-esteem and self-belief. And it's so funny because I had really low iron at the time, as you know, and for some reason I was attracting all these female clients that also had low iron, and I still am, and I still see it as the biggest epidemic in women's health that's going around as far as deficiencies. Like, every second person has low iron. And the more I made that connection between overgiving and pleasing, hustling for your worth, struggling with your worth, and connecting that to deficiencies, in particular iron, the more I started categorizing almost even my clients and seeing myself in them and going, oh my God, we're all doing the same thing and we've all got this deficiency. So yeah, once I started making, at first I was confronted, obviously. And then once I started making those connections, it was like, holy hell, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's so there. And it's such an issue for a lot of women I work with too.
Yeah, and often we're presented with the clients or the people that cross our paths because they
Mhm.
highlight or they mirror what it is we need to work on ourselves. And thankfully, you were doing the work on yourself. So now you can help them at a deeper level because, yeah, as I said, you changed my perspective on this work on what we can shift internally, not just physically on the outside of the body. Um, so just to give some context, we talked about anger because your liver was like the main thing since you were 13 that was out of whack, elevated liver markers. And the liver is the organ of anger. And so this is where I really trust this work. Like you say, you're not angry. And that's where the conversation started going into, but you're just so nice. So you always this nice. Do you ever get angry, even just like in your own space? And then we did a process from memory around, who do you think of when you think of anger? And it started to go back into relationships. And so, did you want to share a little bit about where you're at with a previous relationship and how you used to behave when you saw that person?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think which one, because even I know who you're talking about. Yes. When I think back over a lot of my relationships, I've definitely been that girl that was so afraid to ripple the waters in any way. And I think anger kind of frightened me a lot because I was someone, I've read a lot of self-help books, and the one thing that I think I negatively took from all of that is you're not supposed to feel anger. You're just supposed to move from, you know, having it feel like it's arising and then move straight to forgiveness. Don't go there. And it was a real way for me to bypass it and actually avoid feeling it. But I have this one ex, and I don't experience it anymore, thank goodness. But when we were in the emotional body training, and it's so funny because I hadn't seen him for so long, and then I start doing the emotional body training, and boom, I run into him in the street, of course, because the universe is like, Elle, you need to look at your stuff that you haven't dealt with. I wanted to run him over with my car. And this is no exaggeration. It was that level of rage of just seeing his face and just wanting to run him over. And when I came back and sat down with you in the next session and I told you that, it was like that first realization of there's a lot of anger there for this person that I haven't even allowed myself to feel. I hadn't allowed myself to look at it. And I didn't know how. To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't have the tools to even know how to access it. And I mean, it's funny because we can talk about like the screaming and stuff that you got us all to do, but I didn't know how to access it. I don't think I had. And it was obviously just festering there underneath the surface, wanting to come out,
Yeah,
demanding to be felt. Yeah.
because I think you also told us that, if you would see him, you would go the other way. You would go down a different shopping aisle in the
Oh,
supermarket.
I I could not, like, I couldn't be within his presence. I had to remove myself. I would get a full body reaction of being
Mm.
in this person's presence. A little bit of a backstory of that. Yeah, he cheated on me at the end of our relationship, and it was a really toxic relationship, but it was a really hard ending for me, particularly someone that, was already struggling with self-worth and all those types of things. And if I saw him, it was like a full body, my body would shake. I would feel enraged. I would feel anxious. And it was like this feeling of having to run was the
Mm.
feeling. or run him over with my car, either one.
Yes, and I know of a lot of people that feel like they just see people, not even just exes from intimate relationships, but friends that they've had conflict with, and they go the other way. I'm like, oh, that is not really in your power, because they've still got control over you if you have to go and change your course of action. What I want you to do is to be able to walk past them, to maybe even say hello, and just it's all good because you've processed it. Have you seen him since?
This is so hilarious. I saw him this morning.
All right. How did
I
you go?
Yeah, it's so funny. And this is someone, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is like 3 relationships ago for me. So this is someone, we're going back years. We're going back 7 years now, or 6 years that our relationship ended. So yeah, I've loved other people since this time. And yeah, I can say hi now. I can proudly tell you that I can absolutely say hi now. And it's not me having to G myself up for it. It's just, oh, there he is. It's kind of like a calm, because I've felt it now and I've allowed myself to feel what I needed to feel. And my body didn't shake. I didn't have that full physical reaction that I once would have. And, I'm sitting here talking to you. It just popped back into my mind that I'd seen him this morning. But if you said this to me a year ago, I couldn't have, it would have affected my whole day. And I definitely couldn't have just hi and kept walking. No way. No way.
Yeah. Oh, cool. This is very serendipitous timing. That's a
It
sign
is.
of flow.
Yeah.
So, what else happened? That was like one of the big things that I remember we worked on. And then there was a whole lot of stuff within the group. And then you started implementing this with your work with your
Yeah.
clients, and that started to shift. So, where were you with your clients? And then where were you able to take them?
That's a really good question. So even like the amount of clients that I had when I first joined the group had really sort of waned as well. And I think that was truthfully where I was at with myself, but also just obviously I'd started doubting myself, I think, a bit as a practitioner because, I was so focused on nutrition and the physical side of things and what we could do in that space and, educating everyone on drink a certain amount of water and move your body and, which I still definitely agree are foundational areas. But we were just reaching these stuck points where women would sit across from me and share with me these intense details about their partners or something they'd been through in the past or something they were going through, and I felt completely overwhelmed in a way of some of their stories because I think this is where I become so passionate about practitioners like me who work in the health space not doing some extended training in the area of emotions. And I say that to all my practitioner friends now of we hear these huge stories and really now I can piece it all together and I can really follow it and I can assist my clients in feeling the feelings, releasing the feelings, looking at the way these huge emotions or events have really impacted their physical health and their emotional health. Whereas before, I think I would have heard that and kind of gone, oh my God, what do I do with that? And then sort of quickly bypassed her, oh, and tell me how much protein you've had for breakfast. And
Yes.
it just wasn't really appropriate. And I think I told you that I shared with you that you would say, well, what would you say to them in that situation? I'm like, I would just divert.
Yeah.
And I think that came from not being very confident either. But yeah, I was reaching these stuck points with my clients. I started experiencing, I think it's called imposter syndrome, where I was like thinking I was really terrible at my work, comparing myself to other practitioners that I would see on Instagram and all that, and thinking, God, like, why are they flourishing? And, my health's down, like up shit creek, whatever you want to say. And, my clients are stuck. And yeah, it was a pivotal time coming to you. And once I started learning more about the emotions and kind of feeling more comfortable in that space, because in that group setting, you had us have a lot of conversations with each other, expose a lot to do with ourselves. I really decided to go and put that into practice quite quickly with my clients. And I was lucky that at the time I had a few clients that were struggling in the binge eating space at the time when I was in the group with you. And I thought this is a really good opportunity for me to try and explore some emotional areas with those clients and just see if that will impact their eating behaviors. And it was just like the most incredible experience because all of a sudden these clients are moving away from just talking to them about food to moving into talking about the relationship they perhaps had with their mother, or the relationship they had with the partner, or their inability to feel certain things, or their fear to feel certain things, or they don't know how to express themselves. And these were things that I was also dealing with at the time, and it's still a learning point for me. But it was like we were seeing these shifts. And I don't know if you remember that in the group, I was really seeing these shifts with my clients. And so they were rebooking because they were like, oh my God, I haven't binged in 3 days. Let me book 6 sessions with you, which, wasn't really happening for me before that period, because it was like, I guess you see someone for 1 or 2 sessions, or that was the cycle that I was in. We weren't getting very far. And they were like, okay, well, thanks for your time. You're really nice, which is what everyone told me. You're really nice and you make me feel really good. But I don't know how much, like, I feel good physically, but it hasn't really changed why I've come to see you. So the biggest shifts that I started seeing with my clients was that they were rebooking because they were actually experiencing proper change. And they felt like they were getting something out of our sessions. They'd come in the next session and they'd be like, I felt so different after that. And I think that's that emotional release, right? Being able to navigate them in that way where they were able to have that release and then go home, and I would implement the practices that you were implementing for me personally that were helping me. And they're like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. And I'm still very much using a lot of those principles in my work today. And yeah, I feel like it's taken me right into that binge eating behavior space, because word's getting around, and I don't feel like a lot of practitioners fully understand that space.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just approach it in a quite a simplistic way using that process.
Yeah.
So just for the practitioners who might be listening, because when I teach this, I'm like, you can do it as a standalone thing or you can integrate it into your practice. Like how do you do it? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it is letting go of the fact that I'm not going to cover anything on nutrition, but this is going to help your nutrition.
Yeah, look, that's so interesting, because at the moment I'm thinking about how to brand my space, and I was going to call it Elle Brown Nutrition. And then I thought, because that's my logo, and then I thought, no, I'm so much more than just that. So I am calling it Elle Brown Wellness, because I do integrate these practices now so heavily into my work, but I have chosen to integrate it. So I don't have standalone emotional release sessions, but if you come for a session with me, the sessions will go wherever they need to go. So like, I had a client earlier on in the week where obviously she came to me for an eating behavior that was happening for her, a restrictive eating behavior. But we spent a whole session talking about her relationship with her mum.
Mm.
And then she went home and she came back. Well, she's going to come back in 2 weeks, and then we'll cover, the food stuff. So yeah, it does. Some sessions will be heavily dominated by emotions and really peeling back those layers and looking at what the whole story is. And I love holistic health for that reason, because I'd never just asked about food. I always tried to be inclusive of everything, but I think we don't learn this training in our degree, and we can talk about my forever ongoing study as well, because that's something I want to talk about today too. But I've studied for nearly 10 years. Like, I'm doing my master's now and I'm almost finished, thank God. But, like, we don't learn this. So people, I think, and a lot of my practitioner friends, we're not comfortable, or I wasn't comfortable looking into the emotions. So no wonder my clients were stuck. I was stuck.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't even realize what the deeper thing is that they want beyond the nutrition or whatever other therapy they are seeking out.
They can't see it, and if you can't see it, then it stays where it is, doesn't it? It stays buried.
Yeah. And this is where you feel dissatisfied with your work. Like, oh, what am I doing? And then the imposter syndrome starts to come up. So yeah, you were studying and you are still completing, hopefully just getting things done. But how did your perspective change on study?
I love this question. Yeah, it's so funny. So I have studied since I left school. I've never stopped. So I initially did a nutrition advanced diploma because I wasn't sure if nutrition was going to be for me. And then I realized it was. So then I went on and did a health science degree, majoring in nutrition and dietetics. And then, of course, I still didn't feel worthy. So I booked in and did a master's as well. And You asked me point blank in one of our sessions, why are you still studying? Why did you want to do the master's? And I didn't really know how to answer you at the time. And I think I gave you an answer of, oh, I'm so passionate and I'm very passionate about continued learning. And I am. And I think in the health industry, it's really important to stay up to date with all the, the latest everything. But I really truly believe on reflection, and we had a lot of discussions about this, that I continued studying because I didn't believe I was good enough as a practitioner without the qualifications. I didn't back myself with the advanced diploma. I didn't back myself with the degree. And I was still not backing myself, even though I was in the midst of a master's. I still didn't feel good enough as a practitioner. And I was even going to go on and do a PhD, which when I really sat there, like even someone at the student services said to me when I rang them and said, oh, I don't know what to do. Should I do the PhD? She said, do you want to go into research? And I said, no, I want to work with people. And she goes, then what are you doing? And it was just like this moment of, why am I doing this? And is this something that I actually want to do? Or is it something that without it, I don't feel good enough? And the answer was genuinely, I was using that to be like, well, I'm going to be master's qualified. So that means I'm a good practitioner. And I think you and I did a lot of work in changing my perspective on that. And now it's so funny because I was working so hard and I was just passing, like I wasn't doing well in it. And I completely changed my viewpoint of it and just went, okay, I've committed now. Let's just get through it. Because I started seeing my worth as a practitioner and it felt like something that I didn't really need anymore. But I was still doing. I'm getting the most amazing marks for literally just, as you've termed, getting through it. And I have 2 subjects left and yeah, I'm super excited to finish. But at the same time, it's become something that I don't feel like I have to lead conversations with. Oh, I'm doing a master's. But I think that I always felt in saying that someone would automatically go, oh, she's really smart because she's done this continued study. So she knows what she's talking about. But I had to feel that and believe that within myself. And look, it's still an ongoing process for me, that self-worth, self-belief area, but I'm getting there. It's changing.
Yeah, how cool. Well, I can't wait till you get it done.
Thank you. I know. So close.
So what else changed for you? Or actually, just on the client part, I remember you saying that you would go from like only really being able to see 2 clients a day to being able to book your full day up because you just had renewed energy for your clients. And then there was a bit of a wait list that started building and you still had this other job that was a real community piece. And so we had talked about that and you resigned yesterday, which is super exciting. It doesn't mean that you're not going to still give back to the community. But yeah, what's the dynamic that was going on there?
Yeah, so the dynamic was that I always had this story that I was telling myself that I would never make enough money or I would never book enough clients from working in that nutrition one-on-one or group coaching space where I would be able to survive. I felt like, no, I'll always have to do another job. This will always be a side job. But I would go there and I would be with clients and it lit me up so much. It felt like where I was meant to be. But then I thought, but that's okay, Elle, because you've got this safe job. So if anything happens, you can pay your mortgage, you can, still have enough money and all that. And I just didn't feel like I was good enough to fill books, have enough clients. And I mean, it's still taken me a few years, hasn't it, to get there? But you really pushed me a lot because you also highlighted for me the fact that, and one of my girlfriends said this to me the other day, if you've got a foot in each camp, like you've got a foot in this safe job and then you've got a foot in your true passion and where you're getting called and pulled to, this is never going to grow, like this true passion on the side as much as it can, because you're not giving it your energy. You're still getting pulled in all these different directions. And I've always lumped so much onto my schedule because my other work would start growing and then I'd be like, oh my God, I've still got to commit to this other job. So I'm always so overworked. I'm doing these crazy hours trying to fit everything in. And I just got to the point with myself where I was like, back yourself, commit, give it away, and step forward into what you're supposed to be doing. So yeah, I've done it. I took the
Yeah.
plunge.
You've let go of lots of things, and yeah, imagine the space that's going to open up when you stop your masters as well, or you complete your masters successfully. And yeah, you were too far into it to let go of the masters. You were over for halfway.
I was in my final, in the final year I went, because Jen's like, give it away. I'm like, I'm too close.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited to see how things grow, because not only have you just stepped into being the well-being person, the nutritionist, you're actually opening a well-being space, which I want to hear more about that in a minute. So what else changed for you? Because one of the things that I say to everyone joining any of my groups or trainings or one-to-one coaching, so you were in my group practitioner training,
Yes.
is that I never know what's going to happen, but that's kind of the exciting thing. And I don't force you to make any decisions for things to happen. And I now see a year later, quite a few of those things have just evolved. So it's not that just during that period of time that we're working together, you're going to get change and you have to get change. It's knowing that anything that you learn, you're going to continue to implement it for years down the track. So I often say to people, I don't know if you're going to still be in the same job after this. I also don't know if you're going to be in the same relationship, but what I know is that you'll be able to make a more conscious decision around it. And every course so far, I'm in the midst of finishing a third one, but every training so far, there's been a resignation, there's been a change in relationship dynamics, there's even been a marriage.
We were just saying that, right? We've had in our group, like marriages and this and that, it's crazy.
And actually, there's 3 people from your group that are now all working together. So really, yeah. So really good connections that are made, lifelong connections with these people.
Oh, I think of our group so often, and I still check in with them, because we really went through something together. Like, we really bared our soul in our group, all of us. And it's rare. I mean, particularly someone like me that struggles, I felt like I was always wearing that mask, and it's still something that I have to come back to and, realize myself. But that was profound for me, that space.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as changes, oh my gosh, like, it just changed the way I think I looked at everything. But I suppose it changed me in a way that I began to see that, even the work that I was in, like that part of my work that I call my safe job, it changed the way I viewed that, because I'd been labeling that as a passion without realizing that it wasn't really. There was a lot of fear tied up in that there was a lot of unworthiness tied up in that was like, you still need to hold on to this because you're not good enough for this. But look, it cracked me open in my personal relationships too, with my partner at the time, with friendships. It was quite challenging, because I stepped into it as one person and I left it almost as another. And I think that's hard when you're in a partnership, because certain partner dynamics, like, they get used to the people pleasing and the no boundaries and the all of that type of stuff, and the nice girl. And all of a sudden you're asking questions and you're saying things like, well, I don't know if this is actually working the way that it is. And as we started, there was a few different things that you implemented during the training that I now implement with my clients, like the emotional release techniques, and one of them being screaming in the car. Or that's where I did it anyway. You can really do it anywhere. But the first time I tried to do that, no noise came out. The second time I tried to do that, no noise came out. I couldn't even access it. And that's how much I had squished it down. And if you can imagine how much I was squishing down a lot of things, who my partner was seeing at the time was probably so many layers across who I actually was, that it cracked open our relationship at the start and started connecting us. But unfortunately it ended up going the other way, which it has been challenging as well. But I think it's brought me closer to me, and I think that's a really, really important thing. And I was talking to someone the other day actually that said, a client that I have whose marriage has recently broken down, and she started doing a lot of this emotional type release work because we've explored it in our sessions. And she said to me, the minute I stopped being the nice girl, my husband said to me, I want the old you back. And she's like, this is the first time that you're seeing me though. This is me. And I think that that can be a challenge when you start peeling back those layers of yourself, where you start looking at, well, am I showing my true self to my girlfriends or my friendship group? You know, is my partner seeing who I really am? Am I actually voicing my needs? Because that was something that I realized I wasn't doing. Um, and look, perhaps he liked it that way, but it wasn't really working for me and my health, was it? So yeah, changes, obviously physical, but also with my relationships was a massive, massive shift that happened as a cascade effect, that training. But I still believe that it was meant to.
Mm. I've had a few people say to me as they go through the change that their family and their friends preferred them when they were suicidal and an addict.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, and you're trying to move away from that and they're questioning you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I remember him saying to me at one point, I think we were out at dinner or something, and it was a really, we're having a nice time, and I just picked a fight, and it was because stuff was just bubbling over for me. I think I said that to you, like once I released that valve, all of the pent up stuff just started flowing out. And he said to me, "Why are you doing this? Why are you ruining this when this is a nice thing?" And I thought, but I'm not really, you're not seeing anything. You're seeing such a surface level. And I think you're right in that people get used to what they know and who they met. And perhaps when you go through that transition, you're no longer the person maybe that they did fall in love with or the
Mm.
version that they saw. But I can tell you, not allowing yourself to truly be seen is very lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
But it feels safe, just like the safe job.
Ex- totally, totally. Yeah.
Oh, there are so many things to dive
I
into.
know.
Okay. So then can you share with us the news that you got because you had a blood test
Yes.
in
Yes.
training? What went through your mind? Because this was a really valuable lesson as practitioners is how we communicate to our clients and the
Mhm.
state of fear that they can go into. And it's never a nice place to be,
Oh, I
you
just
know, the waiting
remembered.
game.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I just remembered how frightened my GP made me at the time. And that's
Or was
why
it
I
the
thought,
nurse that made
yeah,
the phone call?
I thought I was dying. That's why. It was, no, it wasn't my GP. Yeah. So, okay, at the time I did have blood work done when we were going through the
Oh,
emotional.
actually, because you had the live blood analysis done first, just for
That's
people
right.
who maybe don't put credit into live blood
Yeah.
analysis. And mm, you
No,
choose which to already go
I
through.
remember now, yeah. So I obviously had bloods done just before I came to you, which were diabolical. And then I went to get the live blood analysis and my blood looked awful. And
Oh,
then
and you were taking supplements and everything, and they
yeah,
weren't
I
bringing
was
anything
taking
back.
iron supplement. My GP had put me on a array of supplements. I was trying to supplement and yeah, that wasn't really working either. And so my naturopath had said to me, you know, come back in a few weeks' time. And I had set to do a new set of bloods as well. And during that time, I started on the emotional body journey and started, you know, looking at all of that, which was God so confronting at that time, poor little Elle. But anyway, I remember coming to a session with you because I had just had the live blood analysis, which looked completely different, and my naturopath was incredibly stoked. She was like, "Look at your cells; they're bouncing around. They're where they need to be. Look at the shape of them. It had been a drastic change," and we were stoked. But I was waiting on blood results from my GP to sort of confirm that. And I remember the anxiety that I felt in that session. You guys all had to kind of just like look after me because I was so anxious. I was like, I'm going to die because this nurse had phoned me. And I got told that if I got a phone call and got asked to come back, that it wasn't good news. And so she'd phoned me and she said something along the lines of, you know, the doctor needs you to come back. And I was like, is everything okay? I'm so nervous. And she was like very blunt on the phone and no, you need to come in, you know, told me it was very urgent. And you hear the word urgent on a phone call getting results. And I thought, okay, something worse has happened. I've got some kind of like cancer or like, you know, me, my brain went down the whole cascade of how negative it could be. I'm never going to get this iron fixed. Nothing's working. That was where my brain went. Anyway, when I did go back, I'm glad I did because I told my GP how it was presented to me, and she was actually quite horrified and said, "I'm so sorry, and that shouldn't have happened with the way that it was read to you on the phone." And she said, "What they should say is that, you know, it's protocol that if anything, if we give you a result, you have to come back and have, that's how my GP works anyway, that you have to come in and just have a conversation. So my bloods were actually amazing, which is the answer. I had lowered my liver markers by 30, which is massive. My inflammatory markers were all the way down to where they need to be, and my iron was completely stable.
Incredible. And your GP asked you what you were doing, and what did you
Yes.
say?
She did ask me what I was doing. I think she half thought that perhaps it was the supplements. And the funny thing was is that I'd gone off the supplements because the iron particularly was really playing with my gut and making me quite constipated, which certain iron tablets can do for digestion. So I hadn't been on the iron tablets for quite a few weeks. And when I told her that, she was like, oh, okay. And you know, she's great. She's quite supportive of whatever I want to try. And she's like, oh, well, I go to Reiki, so I suppose that could, you know, impact you. But she couldn't really describe the way the inflammatory markers had come down or that the liver markers had come down. I mean, I do eat a really beautiful diet and things like that. So I wouldn't like anyone to think that I didn't nutritionally really focus on things there. And I do take liver support supplements, you know, pretty much round the clock because that's something I want to focus on. So I don't want people to think that I didn't focus on other areas of my health either. But this was the one thing that I changed that changed the outcome for me.
And then what were your other therapists saying to you? You're seeing a
Oh,
kinesiologist and acupuncturist, because I remember you saying they all tell me that I've got this anger and this solar
yes,
plexus stuff, but none of them would tell me what to then do with it.
absolutely. So they were absolutely stoked because their belief in the whole process, like even before I met you, was Elle, like there's something here with the emotions, you know, you're not accessing anger, you're afraid of anger. Every time I would go back to my osteo or physio, there I was always having some kind of liver flare where she'd be like, your liver's so angry. Like, and she would always say to me, it just wants to be seen. Like, what are you not looking at? And I didn't really know what to be looking at, to be honest, before I met you. I was kind of like, what does she mean? And I used to put my hands on my liver and say, I can see you. Like I was trying, but I didn't really know what I should have been looking at. And yeah, and I think it was that you actually gave me strategies. I think it was the two. You highlighted the things I didn't want to see, which is always confronting. But then it was like, okay, and now these are some things that you can do to help you release. And I think that was the most helpful because even at the, like, there's been, you know, peaks and valleys throughout my journey where like that whole wearing a mask and that self-worth thing, like that rears its head, you know, you've still got to be on top of that. And it just comes back to, I think, having those strategies that you can sort of return to. And okay, I feel triggered in this moment. I need to take a moment for myself to maybe go for a drive and have a scream in the car. Or, you know, like another really good technique that I use from you is actually having those verbal conversations. Okay, yes, the other person's not in the room with me, but can I also get out what I need to say and really have that emotional release? And yeah, sometimes you can get quite angry in those fake conversations.
Yeah.
Good.
It's great so that you don't then go and run someone over with your car. Like
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to prevent, all of these things building up to make us want to do something that's just completely wrong.
Yeah.
And so you physically felt as well. I think you started going, my gosh, you know, you have this whole team that supported you, which is amazing. But then I think you started to feel like you were speaking a different language with your practitioners. And so they started to drop off. And when they were feeling into your body, they could go places now that usually were quite rigid.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. You also questioned me on why I had so many practitioners. You know, I think at one time I had about 6 and I was focusing on, you know, and it was just round the clock appointments and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And so then I committed to just at that time having my osteo who would do the manual manipulation. I was doing the emotional work and that was it. And she could feel such a difference. So this might not make sense to many people, but she would try and get underneath where my liver sits to kind of feel around up near where your diaphragm is, so that top part. She could never get her hands in there. Like it was almost like my body would go no as soon as she would try and get in there. It was just really wanted to protect that area. And after things started changing and shifting, and like my energy was coming back, and like my blood markers were different, and I was just becoming a different person with my physical health. The next appointment I had with her, she was like, I can get my hands under here. I can't remember the last time I could do that. So it proved to her as well that my liver had calmed down as well, because when your liver's angry or it's inflamed like mine was and your markers are that high, it's a lot bigger. So the actual organ itself, it takes up so much more space than it's meant to. And that's why I was having the difficulties breathing, and my diaphragm was getting affected, and I was getting pain in other areas where I shouldn't. And even some kind of like, I looked a bit bloated or distended down lower, and it was literally just that my liver was so angry. It was so
Mm.
angry.
Would
Yeah.
you go jaundice at times?
Yeah, so that was another thing that I would notice when I was really sick back when I was in my teens. Like, more of my skin definitely changed color, but I can always notice it, like, and I haven't had it for a while, but around my eyes and the whites of my eyes, they'll
Mm.
typically change color. Like, they go a little bit gray looking, and then it goes to a bit of a yellowy tinge. And at the time, yeah, I didn't look well. I mean, makeup's a beautiful thing, but you can see it. Yeah.
I don't think you wear that much makeup, do
No,
you?
no.
And I remember you saying that, like, oh my gosh, if I look back on myself, how grey I was versus
Oh.
now. You had some other cool stuff happen, which I don't know if you even
Mm.
remember, but there was like a purchase of an apartment
Oh,
and
yes. Yeah.
yeah.
That was cool too, because actually, prior to that, like, it's funny how things start kind of flowing as well, and things start coming to you with ease. Even like this well-being space that it was like the easiest process of my life, which shocked me, because I've been someone that I feel like everything's always been hard to get to or to achieve or to, yeah. But the apartment, like, that just flowed. I'd been looking for about a year. I'd been unsuccessful. It felt like I was never going to get there. And then that came to me. I actually was in a conversation. I was looking at a different apartment, complaining to my mum, saying, I'm never going to find what I'm looking for. I'm always going to get outbid, which was really negative self talk. And this real estate agent came over to me and said, what are you looking for? And I just told him what my dream apartment would look like. And a year prior to that, I'd missed out on the apartment on the floor below of the building that I ended up buying in. And it was like my dream building. And I said this to him. I said, there's an apartment building that I really fell in. And he goes, if I'm right, I think the one I'm trying to sell is the level above that, which is even nicer. Do you want to see it? And I just was like, oh my God. And within that one day, I went and looked at it, made a ridiculous offer, and it was mine. So I think when you start really opening up to this work and really changing the way that you look at yourself and all that type of stuff, things do start flowing and changing in a positive direction, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And yeah, it's just everything else that happens in your life. It's not just fixing your liver or your
No,
iron levels or anything like that. Oh my gosh, have I missed anything?
no, I guess just that, yeah, I think you just made a really good point then, because I think we can get super focused on, and I was at that time, like, I was hyper focusing on my iron and my liver, because they, to me, were the two things. That's how I'm trained, right? You focus on the body systems and you get those back in homeostasis or in balance. And I was really hyper focusing on just the liver and just the iron. And a few of my practitioners said, there's more here, Elle, something else is going on. And it wasn't until I really sat down with you and went, shit, there's a lot of stuff going on that has nothing to do with that, but is directly impacting that I think it's also changed the way that I work with the women that I work with. And I think that's why I now feel more confident to, open my own space and go down that road with my work, because I think, do more than the average nutritionist in I don't just look at food or body systems, but I look at a whole host of things in that emotional space. And that's where I've seen the most change in my clients.
Mm. Oh, it's amazing. Actually, I did think of one more thing. You don't
Yeah.
have to dive into the details, but you had something happen within your family in the last year.
Yes.
You ended up coming on board and support coaching for my next practitioner
Yes.
training. But you said that without this work, you probably wouldn't have been able to handle that situation
Oh,
as well.
absolutely. And even just, I think the learnings of, yeah, I'm happy to go into it. That's fine. So yeah, my dad, they found that he had a tumor on his pancreas, which really interests me. And the more I look into it, the more people I talk to, like someone said to me the other day, the sweetness of life, how does he view life? And, the pancreas has got that sweet kind of connection. And I mean, you might even think differently. We talked about this too, but I had huge health anxiety, and it's still something that I am working through, to be perfectly honest with you, because of my own story. And I think my dad brought up more of that. And it just, but instead of me viewing it like, oh my God, I can't cope, I viewed it like, okay, there's more work to do here, because it highlighted for me that health anxiety, is still there for me. It's still something that I can be triggered by. But, we're 5-6 months past what has been such a huge thing for my family, and my health has been okay. And that's kind of, for me, shown me that, okay, I had a few bumps there, which I think you would when you have a parent that's that sick. It got to a really critical level with him. But I survived. And I think prior me would have been like, that would have killed me. I don't think I would have been able to work and do all the things that I did still within that time, and being able to support my family and emotionally. And yeah, so you're right. It does better equip you, I think, for dealing with what's going to crop up, because things will crop up. And I say that now to my clients, they say, how do I avoid stress, or how do I avoid, feeling these feelings? And I think the point is, we're not trying to avoid that. We're trying to give you the tools that when these things do crop up, you're able to move through the emotions, feel the emotions, and then release them. And I think it's that learning for me that they demand to be felt, but then there's ways that you can also work at letting them go. And that's still a learning for me too, that letting go. But I think that's something everyone could so benefit from.
Oh, so beautiful. Have
Yeah.
your family noticed a shift in you?
Oh God, yes. I mean, and I don't want anyone listening to think that I think reached the point of nailing this, because I definitely haven't. And I'm still doing quite a bit of work even at the moment, because, my pesky like imposter syndrome cropped straight up when I signed the lease on my new space. I had 5 minutes of being the most overjoyed I've ever been in my life, and then 5 minutes of completely doubting my ability to do it. So I don't want people to think that I perfect this every time, but it's funny because a lot of friendships have fallen away because people have said to me, you're different. I don't know what's going on with you. Someone that I used to be friends with even accused me of having a breakdown. Like, I think you're having a breakdown.
Mm.
Because I think they were used to a different version of me, perhaps a version that I was like putting out there because I didn't feel confident in just being who I am. And that's honestly still something I'm learning along the way. But yeah, I think my family and my friends now are super proud of me because they're seeing these other sides to me. And to be honest, yeah, I think I'm shining a lot more than I was even a year ago. And that's not, I think I always thought as well that to shine, you had to present as really almost perfect in a way. Like, I'm always happy. I'm always up. My health is always thriving. And I think that was another issue as well, because I think I shared with you, I really struggled to tell people and my clients that I was sick around the time that I had iron deficiency, because being a nutritionist and working in the well-being space, I had this pressure on myself that my health should always be perfect. I should always have perfect energy, and I should always, present in a perfect way. And I think letting that go and realizing, being able to humanize myself and be like, well, no, I wouldn't strive for perfection with my clients. Why am I doing it with myself? Has been a huge change. And just being able to admit to some people, like particularly, recently with relationship changes and stuff like that, to be able to say to my girlfriends, yeah, I'm going through it. I'm okay, but I'm going through it. I'm in the thick of it. And that's not something I would have said before. I would have been like, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah.
Which, is it's not the thing to do. So that's been a learning for me as well. It's okay to be in the thick of something, because there's times in your life where that's where you're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I say to people, even though you get in line with your sole purpose and feel like you're in the flow, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have any challenges, but you'll be able to move through them a lot
Yes.
easier because people will continue to die around you and get sick and
Yes.
have their own issues. There's business dealings, all sorts of things. Things will still go wrong.
Totally. And I think it's that I always had issues around like control as well, and believed like if I could just keep everything around me happy and good and perfect, and everything would be fine. But I think you've so nailed it there. Like you can't control anything really, and people getting sick around you or things cropping up that you're not expecting. And it really is in those moments where you can lean back on those tools that I have learned through you and learned through my journey with this process, that just help you to navigate it a little bit better. And even just naming feelings, because I think I was so disconnected for so long from how I was actually feeling that I don't even think I could have named, like, I'm feeling angry right now, or I was just this one dimensional, everything's good, I'm so nice, it's so happy, look at the butterflies. When really underneath that, like, there was a lot going on there. And so being able to now name, wow, that really I'm feeling really pissed off right now, which is something I don't think I could have done
Mm,
before, has been huge for me. Huge.
yeah. And you're really open on your social media. Not a lot of therapists would be. And I mean, that's what I love about the practitioner training is that it's this space to just go, you know what, things are pretty messed up right now, but I'm here to work on it. And I just so love that you are embodying this and sharing it. And I really want more practitioners out there to just grasp a hold of this work and not just for it to be a theory or a concept, but to embody it and live it and share it.
And I think it could be very scary because I think I was nervous at that time. Like I was going through my own physical and emotional journey, whilst doing the training. And I was terrified for my clients to know that or to see that. And perhaps other practitioners are too. I think particularly like social media and the way, and I have been guilty of this in the past as well. Like you want to present to everyone like, you're on top of the world and everything's fantastic. And I've really stopped believing that that helps people, or that that helps your work, or that that helps your clients, because the minute I drop that and I'm me and I assist them in doing the work, or I show them that I'm also doing the work, they're inspired, they feel safe to share, they feel like, well, you've had your own journey. And I think it's really an empowering thing to do. I think it has the opposite effect of often what we think it's going to do.
Mm, amazing. So, how can people find you, this new wellbeing space and online as well? Because you do work online too, don't you?
I do, yeah. So I'm Elle Brown Nutritionist on Instagram and Facebook. I'm pretty active on the socials, and I'm definitely going to be putting up a lot. So I've just signed the lease. So we're hoping to open in
Ooh.
August. I say where, but it's just me at the moment. Um, and yeah, I'm still on the Northern Beaches if anyone's there in Sydney, Australia. But I'll be having a lot of online offerings as well. And yeah, so if you want to follow along on the journey and see it all come together, Elle Brown Nutritionist is where you find me.
Amazing. And sorry, I just remembered one last thing. You
Oh,
developed a product as well.
did. I
And then
did.
we'll wrap it up.
No, I love this. Yeah. So that was another thing. I think I did that at the end. I think we were coming to the end of the training, maybe,
Mm,
or something. Yeah. Again, like it's just that flow, isn't it? Like once you start
the
opening all of
ideas
those.
come on.
Yeah. And because I work primarily with women and in women's health and with hormones and things like that, I'm obviously a huge advocate of magnesium. And at the time, I was really looking for a magnesium that women could use topically, because a lot of my clients have digestive issues. I had digestive issues, and a lot of my clients were saying, "Oh, if I take the magnesium orally, I get diarrhea, or something else is going on for me, or it's too strong." And so I thought, oh, it'd be really good if there was a topical one that was, really pure and really medicinal and was high strength. And I started looking around for one for myself, and I just found that all the ones that I was finding on the market were heavily diluted. So with things like water, which when I started researching it can create a lot of mold, which again can create illness. I was finding that they had a lot of preserves in there, that perhaps the magnesium wasn't as pure as we thought. And then I looked into like ethical environmental sides of magnesium production and how, it was a lot of it was sourced from overseas, not Australia. And they were using some really horrible practices that were really impacting the environment. And I was like, this is a real issue. Like I started getting quite passionate about it. And so I found a supplier in Western Australia who they don't use much human intervention in the way that they gather their magnesium. So the magnesium is actually created by the elements. So it gets whipped up in the sea spray and the rain helps to gather it. And then it comes together in these crystallized sort of magnesium clusters. And then the sun actually melts it into the magnesium oil. So they don't use any heat treatments. It's literally as pure as like immersing yourself in the sea. And so I was like, I need to try this. So I said to the lady, like, what's the lowest thing you can order? And she's in this remote setting in Western Australia. And she's like, well, dial 10 liters, take it or leave it. And I'm like, 10 liters, God. So anyway, I said to a few of my girlfriends, I'm going to order this magnesium. I'll give you guys some, said that to my family. And I got it and I started applying it topically to myself. And I was like, oh my God, like it worked. And I am always someone that when I travel, I've got like my magnesium and all my, different scents and all that type of stuff. And I thought, how cool would it be if you could infuse it? So it's just all in one bottle. You can spray it if you've got your period or your tense or whatever's going on. And so it honestly was just born from there. And now I have a product called She Spray, which is a women's magnesium body oil. We've got 3 hormone blends. I've just launched a sleep blend and now I've got a pregnancy blend. So it's just growing and yeah, that's flourishing as well. So it's a pinch me moment. That will also be with Elle Brown Wellness. And yeah, I don't know what's next. I'm excited.
Next thing you're going to pop a baby out.
Seriously, I know. It's just, whoa. God, watch this space.
I will put all of those links in the podcast notes for anyone who wants to follow along. But thank you for diving in a lot deeper to give some details as to everything that you went through. You're so articulate about it. You're speaking from the heart. That's how people know it's true. So thank you again and all the best with everything that's to come.
Oh, thank you, Jen. It was so good to chat to you. Thank you.
Anything shared on this episode is for information only. It does not replace professional advice from a healthcare practitioner. If you are experiencing pain, injury, or illness, seek advice that is catered. If you're listening to this live on July the 18th at 11 a.m. New Zealand time, I will be running a free live release masterclass for 2 hours. This is where I cover in depth the actual process that I take my clients through when I am facilitating a release on the physical, physiological, and the emotional level. And I'll also share with you the Eastern philosophies that I tie into my work. So I will cover the chakras, the basics of chakras, and how you can use this to understand what emotions might be buried in your body and causing the physical and mental issues that you have going on. And also how I use Ayurvedic doshas when it comes to this work so that you can understand how you're going to respond. And also how you can use these to connect back to your true nature to really understand yourself on a deeper level and not be so dictated to by society and marketing and advertising out there. So this will go for 2 hours. I will also use this opportunity to share a little bit about my 6-week release course, which is where you can take all of this work a level deeper. This will be the second time I'm running it. The first time was incredible. The energy was palpable. The shifts that people were getting was absolutely amazing during the 6 weeks, but also beyond the 6 weeks. This work continues to evolve. It continues to drop in. You'll hear something different every time if you've joined me on previous masterclasses or even on the course. I still love hearing from people the shifts and the changes that they are getting in their life. I share so much on my masterclasses. These are live. You'll hear new stories, and I hope you can join me. It is on July the 18th at 11 a.m. New Zealand time. For those of you in the States, Canada, and UK, this is going to be Saturday for you. So make sure you join and register. It is at theartoflisteningtoyourbody.com/release. I will pop it in the podcast notes. When you register, you'll get all the reminders, your special Zoom link, and you'll also get all of the time conversions as well. If you do show up live as well, we will be sharing something special with you in the chat that you can use towards the 6-week course. So make sure you register, and we will also be sending out a replay. Thanks for learning with me on the Art of Listening to Your Body podcast. If you like what you've heard, I would love if you could rate, review, and share with your friends. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is The Art of Listening to Your Body. If you're interested in working with me, I offer online courses for the general public and trainings for practitioners, therapists, and coaches. I also open limited one-to-one coaching spaces throughout the year. If you would like to find out more, head to my website, drjinong.com.